Okay, everybody, and welcome to another exciting Bud Rebel show. We have one of the best, most exciting events going on. This podcast has very strange, weird facts. We have issues to discuss, things I hate, business ideas, current issues, investments, and always an exciting inclusion. And who knows where we're going to go. And tonight is no exception. Matter of fact, today I'm joined by a fellow tribesman, and I'm decided to change my hat for you out here. Uh-oh. Already people are canceling the podcast right now.
That's
So
cool. Very cool.
I might be in trouble right now. So Joshua, I have this gentleman named Joshua who really is a very interesting man, which we'll go more about it. And he's a filmmaker, and I think a writer, and so forth. And but you took a big challenge, big chance. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But get to your background and tell us more about it, how you get into filming, how you got a hold of, where your work started and everything like that.
Sure. So I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Uh, Mother moved out to Florida because I had some baseball promise and utilized that to get a scholarship in college. Then I got an injury and I came out to California at 21 years old and met a woman, fell in love, and
We're gonna
basically,
stop there. Wait, stop there. Wait, stop right there. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but how good were your prospects when you were in baseball?
oh, I was very good. I was a top prospect. I was gonna be something. I was really, really good. I was
And I mean, how did you deal with that? I'm not even planning to get on this, but how did you deal with getting injured at a young age? I mean, your dream. I mean, you work so hard to get there. I watch all these kids put so much effort in. How did you deal with that emotionally?
look, baseball saved my life in a lot of ways. I was like Calogero in A Bronx Tale while everybody else was involved in hanging out with the not so good people. I was the one who was told to go to school and become something of himself. So I did, and it helped me get through a lot of tough times in my life. So when, when I got hurt, it was hard. It was hard to deal with. But I'm a fighter. I'm a true, battler. I battle through all situations. So I was able to take my talents to the West Coast, and I started to go to a lower level college called Valley College to start taking some courses. And while I was there, I met a beautiful girl. She was happened to be in the wrong class. She was supposed to be in a class next to me, and her friend said, "Hey, you're in the wrong class." But already we had already started talking, and uh,
Oh, that's
and
funny.
and she wound up auditing our class, and we've been together ever since. So I stayed out here and did different businesses. I got into advertising a bit, doing stuff in that.
Well,
And
slow
then
down again because your story is very interesting. You're more interesting than you make yourself out to be. I'm gonna go back a little bit with the baseball because because I know these people I keep seeing out there. These kids they train them. They go to like so much work to become a baseball star. I mean, they like you like do like 720 for like 7 year pitcher or something. Because I know people like the parents just keep driving them all over the place. Is it like that serious when you get to that young? When you're young, did you start like at 6 years old and stuff? I'm just curious about it.
well, I played baseball my whole life, but I didn't. My mom had to work, so I sort of took myself everywhere. I didn't have the parents driving me everywhere and stuff. So it was me on a bike when I can ride a bike, and then
Wow.
basically, just sort of, getting myself to and from practice. And yeah, I got calluses on my hand. I'm 50 years old. I got calluses on my hand still from all the swings that I would take to get myself into baseball shape. It's a dedication. I used to show up before practice and hit off a tee or do some soft toss, and practice and then stay after practice. So it was a lot of work to get yourself to a level. And I was blessed by God. He touched my arm, and I had a cannon, for an arm, and I was blessed. So there was a lot of attributes like that helped me, really love the game and want to play at the highest level. When I was in the outfield, I always felt like I was in a home away from home. All my problems, all my troubles in life would just go away because I'd be on that field.
Wow, that's great. That's great perspective. So now we're going to advertising. You get into advertising. Are you like the person that produces the ads? Are you the person that's the marketing? What do you do with the
No, no,
advertising?
I bring new clients. So I would basically I got the gift of gab. Some people believe I'm the best salesman they ever met. So I have the
Oh, we're going to hire
ability.
you. Forget it. You got another job. Sorry.
So basically, I just had the ability to sit down with different kind of people, no matter what, whatever ethnicity, no matter what race. I'd be able to sit down with them and connect to them on a certain level, and be able to have them buy our product, or utilize our products. So I did that. And in the process of doing that, I was always, that was only, I was, 21, 22. I was always into entertainment and whatnot. So I got into, this is the late 90s, early 2000s. I got into, the club scene of, coming from New York into California. California was always a few years behind New York on many levels. So I basically got into throwing nightclubs, and doing those after hour things. And before you knew it, I put myself in some around some people who aren't great people, and got myself into some trouble. Was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Luckily, I hired a very good lawyer. We were able to fix that situation. But he gave me great advice, fatherly advice. He's like, "You're not in New York no more. Don't New York it out here." And from that, I basically, put my mind that I want to do different things. I want to do entrepreneurial things, creating things that are not going to put me in any, bad places with the wrong people. And
No, I got to interrupt you again because again, that's a really powerful point you're making. Because a lot of times it's not really almost you; it's the people that you're hanging out with. I mean, I hear stories
show
that
me, show
people.
me your friends, and I'll show you your future, they say.
Yeah, I mean, because I know heard stories about people that are just in the car and they're just driving someone, and the next thing the guy's robbing a bank, and you're topless to the car. It's not. You don't even know what's going on half the time. Sometimes you're right, and it's sometimes just can screw up your entire life by being the wrong people.
Well, and you don't realize when you're young and you're making a lot of money, doing things like that, you're not realizing, certain things. You just, again, I'm very entrepreneurial, so you're into that mindset of seeing how far you can take that, and there's certain elements to different things that at a young age you don't pay attention to, that you learn through age. And at that time, I was involved in making sure that this could be a huge success, but not seeing all the elements around me, which again, I always feel, I'm a very big Christian. I wear my faith on my sleeve. God has protected me a lot to make sure that, there's been a lot of instances in my life where God has stepped in. I was in a nightclub once in my late teens, early 20s, and protecting a friend, and some crazy guy pulled a gun out, and the gun
Mm,
jammed. Well, the funny part about
wow.
that, it was a revolver, and revolvers aren't supposed to jam. So I
Mm,
believe that God was there protecting me. Another
sure.
time we were coming home from a party from Florida to Alabama, where I was going to college, and I was sleeping in the front seat on the I-10 going, back west, and all of a sudden we were spinning on the 10, and there's no cars on the 10, which is weird, and we see that we hit an only 6 foot guardrail that was only guardrail for miles, and there was these tall trees that if we wouldn't have hit the guardrail, we might have went into there and not been here to have this conversation with you today. So many instances, God has looked out for me. I wear my faith on my sleeve, and He's made sure that I'm in position to do the things I'm doing today.
Right. That's really well. That's really amazing. Okay, so you're an entrepreneur, and you get into like what, new businesses you're starting to do, like different types of
Yeah, so
things.
I
You said.
did the nightclub, and then I got into that. So now I realized, all right, I really like entertainment. So what I do in the mid 2000s, call it 2008, is I take some money and I start partnering with other guys with money, and I start packaging scripts and selling them to studios. So you would go, you'd find a good script, you would put some talent behind it, and you would, make sure it was developed enough to where somebody, whether they were low level, mid level, indie studio, or even a studio, you would then sell, that product. And if you package something for a few 100,000, you might be able to sell it for 1 million. Well, we started doing that on a regular basis, and I was doing well, and I got my taste into Hollywood. Um,
Wow, but again, you don't, when you decide to do this, you don't know anybody, particularly in Hollywood. Am I right for this?
no, I'm a very gift of gab person, so I'm hanging
You
out.
just you just walk into, I don't know, 20th Century Fox, I'm making names up, and you're saying, here's a great script, and you try to get talent associated with it, and they just buy it from you.
So basically, I would already have the script and the talent associated, and I would
Oh,
have
we got to
people who,
talk after this afterwards too. I mean, you're
well,
incredible, but
well,
go ahead.
I would have people who have already worked with the
Mhm.
studios, like you had mentioned, Warner Brothers or Fox or
Right.
Lionsgate or something, and we would then sell that, sell projects off, and then they would go and take it and develop it into something else. So there was pretty interesting projects that we had our hands on first, and then they did well. But to me, it was the quick, hey, let me flip this. It's like flipping a house. Let me flip it real quick,
Mhm.
and make some profit, and then from that, I did that for a year to a year and a half and became a millionaire, and started to really do well for myself.
Let me
Um,
stop you there for 1 second there again, if you don't mind. Did you have like scripts that became like multi millionaires, and you just took a small cut and you're like almost, maybe I
no,
should have got more involved in
I
it?
flipped out, and the projects would go on and do what they would do. Like we had our hands in Cadillac Records first before, and then they took it, the studio, and made it what it was and things like. So there was projects like on that level that we would package, flip, and get rid of before we wouldn't have no more involvement after that. The studio or the production house would go and make it, and then make the lion's share, if you will.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like, oh, I should have done more? You were
I,
just good with it.
I don't live with regret, man. I know I know what the game is, because to take the whole journey is an 18 to 24-month journey, where to
Right.
me, I'd rather just package, flip, and get rid of it and not have to worry about those headaches. So I don't think about it after the fact.
It's like a craps table. People stay on the craps table and they take all the money. You just probably would know to leave before most people.
For me, it was baccarat. It was a baccarat table for me.
Okay, going on with this, let's go through the story.
Yeah, so basically, I then parlayed that relationship into I did well, did really really well, and I always wanted more. I'm always a true entrepreneur, always wanting the bigger and wanting the more. So I did that for 3 years strong, and then I got the crazy idea that I wanted to own the Los Angeles Dodgers. So obviously, I wasn't a billionaire, but I was surrounded by people who had different assets and different uh, unique ways for funding. And one guy owned billions of approximate billions of mining rights that haven't been mined yet. And at that time, I didn't know. I got ragged for this because I didn't know about mining. But apparently, when USA land, you dig holes deep, hundreds of holes, and you assay it, and you see what minerals are down there. There's gold, there's palladium, there's platinum, there's all these different minerals. So I never knew back then how long and how much money it took to actually mine and do that. It costs a lot of money. But I tried to use that guy to initially get money for the bid, because I knew in my head when the Dodgers were for sale, it was a bankruptcy sale, that McCourt had bankrupted the team. The team was worth 900 million. He had 800 million in debt on top. So in my head, I'm like, if I can get, the money for this, I know the TV right deal for Fox is coming up in a year. I might be able to package the new media right deal around the purchase and use it as collateral and buy the team. So I had some different folks with interesting funding mechanisms, and I finally hooked on, after all the mining thing wasn't going to work and this wasn't going to work. That I finally met a gentleman named Fred, who introduced me to Mung Ho Lee. Mung Ho Lee was Michael Jackson's business partner in Michael Jackson Enterprises, and he was also Michael Jackson's business partner in Sony BMG. So I told Mung Ho, he goes, well, look, I'm part of a company. We have a lot of money. I can give you a proof of funds, verifiable. But how you gonna lever? What's your plan? I said, well, I think the TV rights deal is going to be next year. It's going to be between 5 and 7 billion over 30 years. So I think if we get the team for 2 to 2.5 billion, we leverage the TV rights deal. And he's like, are you sure the TV rights deal is coming up? I said, yeah. So I sent him all the paperwork showing him that. And by then he approved me to make a bid on the Dodgers using his money. I bid $2.2 billion. Fred Rogan held my bid up on NBC Sports and said I was nuts. But my thought process was, no team had ever sold for 2 billion at that point, ever. It was going to be the first multi-billion-dollar sale team, and you were so close to 2 billion, somebody would pay that. And then I said, well, people would think 2.5 is too crazy because they don't know what the media rights deal is really going to be at that time. So I came up with 2.2 billion, and by the grace of God, my bid was the actual winning bid. But the powers that be weren't going to let that happen. So they used all their media assets to come after me and beat me up. And because I was America First and red, white, and blue and this, and that, I wasn't. And this was pre-Trump, by the way. People think like, oh, Trump was the only. No, this was, if you were America First guy even before Trump, they hated you, you know. So because I was so red, white, and blue, and I actually picked the winning bid, and they would have had to choose me and give me 30 days to come up with the money to make sure I had it, which we did through Mung Ho. They made sure that the media beat the shit out of me and excuse my language.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, beat the shit
Fine.
out of
Don't
me.
worry about it.
Oh,
You're okay with it.
okay, and basically and drag me down. Now, if you look at what the Dodgers actually sold for, I outbid the Guggenheim Fund. They bid 2.175.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so technically, sitting in front of you should be the owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers, just so you
That's
know,
amazing
because
story.
it wasn't a bid like you think. When you're in a bankruptcy sale, you submit the bid. Whoever has the highest bid wins. Then you have a
Right.
certain amount of time to close. If you don't close, they go to the next guy. They just
Right.
saw that I picked a winning bid and humiliated me in the media and beat me up. They beat me up because
Like,
when I was
I know we
arrested,
got,
listen,
but
let me tell
yeah.
you, when
Oh,
I was
yeah.
arrested for that thing that I told you about and it got thrown out of court, they wrote articles saying that it wasn't thrown out, that I was a convicted
Oh,
drug dealer and I was all this and
wow.
that. They never mentioned it was expunged and thrown out of court and dismissed. So,
Well,
so,
it sounds like you were Trump before there was Trump.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was pre-Trump. I was pre-Trumped. Yeah, exactly.
You got the Trump treatment before you were Trump.
Exactly. You know, that's why I relate so much to the gentleman. So, a lot of people put their tails between their legs and me, again, I've always been a fighter my whole life. So what I did is, I was blessed by God. I was approached by a man who was a paisan who lived in Newport, who had one of his handlers reach out to me, and he brought me out to Newport Beach and said, "Hey, I want to show you a product. He goes, I watched all your interviews. By the way, you should have owned the team. I'll let you know that now. But he goes, I want you to change the world of energy. There's a way that we can be more useful with energy on this planet. And he wasn't a green guy by any nature to where he thinks that he believes the planet goes through normal global warming. He doesn't think that we're doing it. You know,
Right.
8 billion people, you can fit us all in a small estate in
Let me
America.
interrupt you there for a second too, because I am the most green, I think, of all the liberals. Okay, I have a electric car, I have solar panels, I have a solar generator, and it's all because I want to save money. It's cheaper.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
being a cheap at it. But I'm also saying to myself logically, even if we did everything right in this country, there's China and there's India, and there are a
yeah.
billion people. Quote, right, quote. But it wouldn't make a difference. It's like a dent. So it's like
Yeah.
almost it's a little bit of a farce, I think. Even if everything they say is true, unless you have China and you have Russia and all these countries agree,
But listen,
it's all a
listen,
joke.
conserving actual minerals and things like that, I'm okay with if you can do things to do that because then you're not wasting things. I'm okay with
Right.
non-waste, you know.
Yeah.
So we got involved in a company that had the ability to reduce energy usage, really, not with the whole the whole door-to-door salesman, but the really way to do it. And we got involved in that and we did real well for a lot of years. From about 2013 to about 2018, I would say, 2012 to 2018 after the bid, we did real well. We
So this is
created.
what solar, what kind of energy? Solar energy? What is it? Nuclear?
No,
What is
this
this?
is an equipment called maximum power transfer solution that a engineer friend of mine invented that you would hook up to electrical panels, and harmonics are like cancer or like turbulence to a system. They basically distort it and make things work harder to perform. We take the harmonics out, so true power is being used through and through, and it saves the lifespan of equipment and everything. I mean, so it's really a remarkable technology.
You know what? I'm going to tell you what's remarkable is that you even understand this stuff. I think you're not a physicist or whatever. It doesn't
I
explain.
have eidetic memory, and I sit with some of the, my co-founder in my studio mastered with electrical engineering from Stanford, and he'd sit would say, I don't know how this guy explains the whole functionality of magnetic forces collapsing and back EMF, and he's like, this guy acted like, he goes, I went to years of school to learn this, and this guy hears it once and regurgitates it, the proper way. It's just been a blessing to have a memory that I have, to I haven't talked about this stuff in years, and I can break down the whole schematics of our technology for you in one session.
Well,
So
well,
for
we'll have to do
me,
that when we're at technical school.
yes, yeah. So
By the
so
way,
so
I'm gonna interrupt your story for one moment. All right, we're gonna take a little commercial break, and I'm gonna come back with some weird facts. Okay, we're back with some weird facts. You were talking about, about how you're raising money and all that stuff. And I came across something called SPCA, which seems so nice, the animal rights group. And
yeah,
they raised money. They raised $27 million. Do you know how much of that money went to the charity?
no. Oh wow.
About zero. Most of the money went for advertising. Sometimes you give to these charities and you don't still know what you're getting. You know what I'm saying? And that's a perfect example. I'll give you one more weird fact. Military funerals use fake electric bugles to play taps.
That's crazy.
Is that mad? Is that weird? Okay. So now we're going to go further with your story there. You're onto this whole business thing that you're doing. You live in California? Am I right there?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
I have our offices are in Nevada, so would travel back and forth from Nevada to California, but I would live in California. Take the politics out of California; it's the most beautiful state in the country. I mean, from top to bottom,
mm.
But unfortunately, the politics make it the most ugliest state in the country.
So
Unfortunately.
now you have this business, you're doing well, you have a nice family, everything's going well. You're not doing too much with entertainment now. Am I right about
No, I'm
that?
not. I'm not. I'm focused on this, and then all of a sudden, dun 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 dun, the pandemic hits.
Hmm.
Once the pandemic hit, a lot of our products was not from China, but it was from India and Germany and other parts. And people don't remember this, but COVID hit the other parts, a lot more, a lot earlier than it hit America, like 6 to 7 months earlier. So we started to see manufacturing slow down on products that we needed to eventually came to a full halt. And then COVID hit us. And I was so invested in, I was tens of millions of dollars in that, basically it took that company down. So,
Wait. I'm going to take another break because I want to know what happens after this. You are down out. This is like your life is a roller coaster. We'll be back and talk about it in a minute.
amen.
Okay, we're back with the break about you're on a roller coaster now again. So far, you are supposed to be a baseball star. I get hit. You get accused of a crime that, whatever, it's like nothing. You get defended, but you screws your life up. You're involved in the baseball merger goes bad. And now the company you're working with, everything's going great. And COVID happens. You like my hero right now. Go ahead. So this business
And
goes
at
down,
the
and what
same
happens with
time,
them?
to make the story even better, my sister, who is my oldest sister of 5 years, was diagnosed through that process with stage 4 ovarian cancer.
Oh my
My
God.
mother was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and my father
Wow.
was diagnosed with Agent Orange from the Vietnam War, all at the same time. We're very positive thinking people, all of us. My mom, sometimes could be cynical, I guess, but my dad and my sister, very, very positive mindset. But my mom actually surprised us all and held it together. My sister stayed in the homeopathic way for many, many years, and then was convinced to do chemo, which she hadn't done all this time. And then it got her in a year after chemo. She was gone.
Wow.
She was gone. Now, before she passed, she always said to me, you always loved Hollywood entertainment. You remember movie. I remember every Rocky. I could tell you every word from every Rocky movie from start to
Hmm.
finish. So she's like, and I said, I really want to change media because I see it's so demonic, and I know this town, the conspiracy theories are realities. There's some really demonic people in this business. So my sister said, well, why don't you do it? And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And she, on her deathbed, came up with the name Global Ascension Studios. She said, since you are a Christian, you believe in Christ, and you want to rise above evil, you should call yourself Global Ascension Studios. So the gentleman, Derek Chan, who was the graduate of Stanford, master in electrical engineering, I went to him and I said, hey, this is what I want to do. He was involved with me in the energy company, and his job before being involved in the energy company, he was the CTO of DreamWorks Animation.
Oh
So
wow.
so synergies aligned. to where he says, by the way, tell your sister, great name. Let's
Mm.
run with it. So Global Ascension Studios was born, and it was during COVID. So now I'm like, all
And this
right,
is 2000. This is 2020
2020,
back this.
2020. Yeah.
2020.
So
Okay.
now we know it's going to take a few years. COVID's going to have it, but it gives us the ability to get our legs under us.
Right.
I'm saying I'm doing this whole studio with a conservative mindset. I'm going to let everybody know I'm the only conservative movie studio in Hollywood. That's it. With that, at the time, we became very engaged in a lot of conservative projects. So through a buddy of mine, Frank Torchia, another Paisan, Torchia Entertainment, Torchia, is he's done a lot of 1,000 hours of television. He brought to me and said, "Hey, I got this movie called The Relentless Patriot. It's about an activist artist. Would you like to get involved?" I said, "Sure, I know who the gentleman is." So, I came up with the idea. I said, "All right, this guy is an artist who paints the flags. If I and this year, so by the way, I'm fast forwarding because it took a lot of years for COVID to get out of the way and all of us to
Mm.
get back to normal life. So fast forward to 2023, late 2023, um, we then start developing the plan. And I said, hey, how long has this project been in development? They said 6 years. I said 6 years. So I took it, we edited, made it ready, and I said, you know what? I want to release it in 2024. They're like, what? Why do you want to wait? I says, well, this guy paints the flags, and President Trump's born on Flag Day. And this year, Flag Day falls on a Friday. So July 14th, Flag Day's on a Friday, which is when movies are released. If we release this movie about the flag guy on Flag Day, which is Trump's birthday, it'll be a hit. Now, I knew what happened to Sound of Freedom. I was somewhat, when I was in the movie business before, I knew about the project. I knew they were exposed in trafficking. I had the ability to take it public, but the powers that be didn't let it. So I backed away from it. And I knew they got shadow banned heavy because of the topic. So I'm like, all right,
Mm.
this may get shadow banned. So lo and behold, um, we got the ability to get theatrical for The Relentless Patriot, and we got shadow banned. We had
So explain shadow ban to the audience.
shadow banned is when you're supposed to be put in a certain amount of screens and things happen, like they say it's sold out when it's not, and they say the AC's broke so you can't see it, and all this stuff happens. So basically how movie theaters work, no matter what movie, if it's Mission Impossible, the first weekend has to do well to stay for the next weekend. It's called a run. You need to show
Mhm.
momentum or they can take theaters away from you. So first weekend they basically give us about 800 screens and we get heavily shadow banned. And basically now the next weekend they drop us down to 300 and they give us stupid times like 12 p.m. in a mall in the middle of the country where
You
nobody's
know,
going to see
it's
it.
it's a weird thing that you say this. It's like because it's a business, and if you have a product in a business that there's demand for, then why, as a business person, do you care what the politics is? You want to make money. It's even the thing like I just talked about. We'll talk about in a minute if you want, like this whole thing with Jimmy Kimmel thing. It's interesting because again, as a business, why wouldn't you have the one comedy or whatever late night show that was even by balanced because it's the only one, and you have 50% or 40% of the audience that has nothing to watch. Right? It's a weird thing that their politics is so strong they don't care about money. The studios,
It's not, well, think about it. I mean, it's not really weird. It's the machine. You're paying people to go out and protest $500, some folks a day. You're paying them to do these things. I'm sure we're going to get into this. I'm sure you're going to find out what I think I already know to be truth, because I do know some people, that there were people who visited Tyler's house, who was supposedly the assassin of Charlie Kirk. He had some visitors from some black cars and things like that
I heard
in the
that also.
house that him and his transgender boyfriend were living in at the time, or staying. There was things like that that were going on. And you're going to hear about it. So when you got that kind of money back in it, then you can say, hey, this guy's trying to win an election, and this is a conservative movie called The Relentless Patriot. Do we really want to give any credence to that? No, we want to
So
do
by the way,
everything.
how do you get it into 800 theaters?
Yeah. So I I created a trailer in a way that it more advertises America than our movement. Even though the movie, listen, my friend, not only did I get this into 800 theaters, the premiere I had at the New York Times Center. and New York Times hates us. Everybody knows that. And on top of that, the New York Times in my movie, 3 times we ragged and shit on them in the movie. So their executives were watching the premiere before the movie released, and the guy looks over after we shit on the New York Times the third time, and he gives me a thumbs up like, I can't believe you got this past us. Good job. Like he gave me an attaboy hero for getting it. He's like, because normally they would never okay that movie in their first floor theater room ever. So
So you're able to sneak it in.
I was able to sneak it in just like we were able to sneak it into the theaters, and so we get shadow banned. Now, my whole plan before we released this movie was to get to Mar-a-Lago and have President Trump in attendance and show a screening there. So I did that in March before June. I did it in March before we released the movie. And lo and behold, I got the president there. And I told the
So
president.
no, like, this is even gets more interesting. So you get the president. You don't know the president, I'm sure, before that
So
time.
I'm friends with Siggy Flicker, who is the head of the Holocaust Board, or one of the head people of the Holocaust, who is members at Mar-a-Lago, knows President Trump really, really well. And I told Siggy my mission. I said, look, I want to do this Relentless Patriot. I want to go and I want to show a screening at Mar-a-Lago, and then I want to get President Trump's rights and tell his story, like it should
So
be
let me
told.
ask you a question about this. We got a lot of movie theaters that are doing terrible. Movies are not doing well in the thing. We got 40% of the audience, let's just say for the sake of argument. If we, as conservatives, buy a whole bunch of quote studios and produce films that are geared to that market that they can't watch anywhere else, is there a better chance that we can control? Let's see what's
My
happening.
friend, my plan has always been, and it's this is what I always say about the conservatives. I'm very, this, I'm going to say this last 2 years, I've been very proud of them. Years before, I've been very disgusted by them because they didn't see how media was going to be used as a tool against them. They weren't intuitive enough to see it because there was many times that Disney was for sale, ABC was for sale, all these different networks were for sale, and all the liberal billionaires were
Right,
buying them because they
right.
knew they would be able to use it as a tool. I
I
always said
just is
this,
it
the deep state is a lot better at being evil than the good guys are at being good.
now
They don't
I try to be, let's say, I'm trying to understand the other side or whatever. I try my best. And I'm trying to see what is like other than I mean, there's motivation, people, power, money, fame, whatever. And I would say like them not being I mean, I think what people do is they stay in their little nest, you might say, and they don't like
No,
in New York
no,
City, they
no, no. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole with you. You're being too
nice.
reality. You're being too reality. No, they're a demonic. When I say demonic, I'm not using that as, oh, I'm using a word to describe them. There are actual demonic people in this business. I know because I'm in the business. There is real Illuminati stuff that's not just, oh, that's just talk. No, it happens. It's real. They're part of a cult, and it's a cult that is against anything that's light. It's always darkness. There's no God, whether you're a Jew or a Christian. There's no God. There's no following. They follow their own thing, and it's real. And they believe that if they worship that and put each other through different levels of trials, that it gives them levels of success.
It's funny
That.
you say that. It's I not funny, but it's ironic you say there's a movie that just came out. I forgot the name of it. It's so interesting. It was about a football player that like almost sells his soul to the devil to become a great football player. And the way you're describing it is almost like the
Well,
same
listen, Mike
thing.
Smith, Out of the Shadows, did a documentary in 2020, and Mike Smith was one of the biggest stuntmen of all time in Hollywood. And within one day, because he saw behind the curtain and saw all this demonic stuff, he secretly made a documentary, released it, and was released by his agency in a second. But the documentary currently has 100 views on it, 100 million views on X, because
Mm.
people were engulfed by it. And it has people like Liz Crokin, who was a reporter who actually covered these kind of topics that were sensitive. So this business was being utilized, and the music business was being utilized to basically traffic, to basically use demonic things to really ramp people up. Look, I wear my name Joshua proud. I was here sent, not a doubt in my mind. I'm not God. I'm not Charlie Kirk. I'm not a savior,
Mm.
but I'm a warrior. I was sent here to save media and use media in a positive way to lead people. That's my goal. I wear Joshua 1-9 right here. Be strong with courage. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And I get attacked. The demonic attacks I get are so powerful, but I pray multiple times a day to keep them away, because my goal is to take media back, give media back to the people. There's brainwashed people who want to see death. There's people celebrating a guy getting his head blown off in front of the whole
Yeah,
world.
how is it? That's so wild that you mentioned that because I mean, oh, sorry. It's so weird that you mentioned that because there are so many people. You never thought you'd see a day when people would actually like cheer for the death of another human being that speaks. I remember, like when I was growing up with Martin Luther King, I mean, it's still past my time, Martin Luther King, you know, there were some sickos out there, and like even Malcolm X said, no, I didn't agree with him, but again, that one other thing, but the idea is that he would had it spoke freely, he didn't do any harm, and when they got killed, people universally thought it was wrong. It wasn't even a question. There was not even, and to think that when Jimmy Kimmel went on the air and he said a horrible thing, that that there was some type of thing that he wasn't making a joke. You know, I mean, it was so bizarre. Now, to be honest with you, that Jimmy Kimmel thing is like, I don't think Trump should have got involved. I think Trump should have said that's disgusting. And the FCC shouldn't have said anything. Maybe if they didn't say anything, Jimmy Kimmel still wouldn't be on the air
Yeah,
because
but we
there
got
was a
to
movement
remember,
about that.
let me follow back on that. What you're saying, you know, I'm tired of people saying maybe Trump this, maybe Trump that. We know who he is. He is
Right.
not the maybe I'm not going to be guy. If that's the guy, then you shouldn't have excuse me, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have voted for him.
It's
You
okay.
shouldn't have voted for him. I mean, Trump is Trump. And
Right.
what's really going on is we're in a cesspool. This is in my movie. I don't know if you watched my movie, The Man You Don't Know. We'll get into where
Mhm.
the Relentless Patriot went to. But in my movie, I by the way, I kept Donald Trump out of the movie purposely. I had all his family, all his friends, and I kept him
Mhm.
out because I didn't want him to look like the guy that was like, "Hey, that's me." They're all talking about me. I wanted to have it, and I had to tell him that. That was a hard conversation. You kept me out of my movie. Yeah, so it was one of those things. But I knew that we were dealing with a very dark cloud over this country, and that extended to the world. Because America, think about the power this country has. And people really don't stop to think. They're really ignorant because they think, oh, I can go live here, go live there. If this country stops doing anything business wise, the rest of the world collapses for 40 years. If our markets crash, the rest of the world's markets, they don't be able. Who can sustain a comeback? Only we could. Only us. We have the biggest military. I don't care what they're saying, what China and Russia's doing today with all their technology. Our military is bigger than the next 26 countries combined and more technologically sound and ready. So we have a power over the rest of the world that the world doesn't have. And that dark cloud, which is called the deep state, has the ability to have it hovering here and sprinkling around the rest of the world. Okay. So, what do you need to fight somebody who's the way I just described? You need somebody who's willing to get in the mud and get dirty with them.
Oh no,
Somebody
I know,
who's
and
not nice. Somebody who's going to put his nose in places he's not going to
right.
do it. You need the extreme to that. There has to be the counter to that, because you almost got to break the whole thing down to have it start to heal and rebuild correctly.
It's funny. That's one of the things that I was always thought about running for office, but I said I'm not that mean. So I said it probably wouldn't work. I mean, we've always had quote nice conservatives, nice, well, always nice, and let's call it compassionate conservative. Always try to think, and Trump is not. He's blunt, he's real, and I don't mind that. I'm just saying that issue, that one time, I think Jimmy Kimmel would still be off the air if Trump said what he wanted to
But
say, but
what
the
air is he
FCC
on?
commission,
Let's remember, my friend, he was
he's
only
off a lot of
allowed.
channels. Yeah,
He was only
yeah,
allowed a certain channels, and that's fine.
right.
Let him look. First of all,
I
uh,
I don't mind, and I want everyone to have the freedom of speech or
but I am
whatever.
a
But I
free
just think
speech guy. Listen, I'm a free speech guy. So for
but
me,
I
when
don't
people
think it's
said,
all
"Why
three
did you
channels to
not
be the way.
sue?" The LA Weekly wrote something bad, and they said things wrong about your arrest, and why didn't you sue them? I said, "Listen, I could have done all that, but I believe in
Mhm.
the First Amendment. And to me, I would rather go prove them wrong. I would rather give them the freedom to write what they do, because then if I prove them wrong, then people got to look at both and say, wait a minute, well, he did all this. and they're saying this, but look at all this he's doing. They're going to have to make their own decisions free and openly. Listen, I'm a very conservative guy. I lose all my conservative friends on the abortion thing because I'm so conservative. I raise my kids the right way. I say we shouldn't have a say so as humans about it. That people should do whatever. Josh, how could you say that? Well, I believe in God, and I raise my kids that if you do it, you're going to have to answer to Him someday. You're going to have to go to God and explain to Him why it was murder you committed. But it was my job as the parent in my household to raise my children appropriately. It's not my job to parent you and other women out there. See, that's not to me the same way when people say, well, murder is wrong. Yeah, but then you have to face the consequences for that. You still have to face consequences. To me, the same way you're saying Trump shouldn't gotten involved in that, I can agree with you and say, hey, Jimmy Kimmel has the right for free speech. I agree with that. But also, I know what Trump is, and I'm not making excuses, even if I believe you might be right. I know what I voted for, and I got to sort of stand behind what I voted for.
Yeah, I know. And again, I don't have a problem with that. I actually had more of a problem with the FCC saying what they said. But anyway, I think Jimmy Kimmel will fade as a whole anyway. I think his contracts, he's not really that, as Trump would say, he's not
The
quite
guy
that
has
talented.
130,000 viewers a night. There was a woman who
Yeah,
took a picture of her dog poop that got 4 million views the same night. So I mean, I'm just telling you, like, this
right.
is the equivalence of what the
And
viewership
I
is.
don't know, they're gonna these big media companies eventually. I mean, they try to do all this quote woke stuff, and they were losing so much money. Eventually, you think that the shareholders, public, will say, you know what, let's
Now,
try to do
listen
a
to
little bit
what's going to
more.
happen, brother. Amazon and Apple are going to own everything in the end in media. Mark my words. They say, what about Netflix? Netflix will sustain. They'll last the longest. Everybody's going to fall behind Amazon. It's going to be Amazon, Netflix, and Apple, and then Amazon eventually. I mean, Netflix eventually, in the course of 10 to 15 years, will get eaten up because Amazon and Apple don't need movies to make money. They don't
Right,
need viewership. They
that's
can
true.
sustain because they use other outlets for money. This is the biggest write off for them. They don't need it. It's nothing for them. So
Yeah,
so to get back on track here. So I basically parlayed the Relentless Patriot to get the rights to make The Man You Don't Know about President Trump. And when I say get the rights, I signed deals with all the kids, Don Jr., Eric, Laura, Kimberly Guilfoyle, Kai Trump. I got all of them to, and by the way, a lot of people were pitching them, and I went in with my idea. I said, they go, what's your idea? We're getting pitches from everybody. I said, The Man You Don't Know. They go, what? I said, that's the name of the movie, The Man You Don't Know. They're like, are you? And what are you gonna? I says, I'm gonna put all that. He's got about 30 stories that I know that there's even more, but I can use of philanthropic things that he did that nobody ever talked about. So, for example, when the family in Georgia lost a 5 generational farm and the father killed himself, and President Trump bought the deed and gifted it to the family, nobody knew that. He didn't come out and say, I did that. He kept it quiet. When there was a serial rapist in New York, and New York in the 80s, and New York couldn't afford to have extra money to catch the guy, he laid out 40, 50 grand to the cops. They caught the guy in less than 2 weeks. Nobody knows about these kind of things.
how
So
come it's funny. It's funny you mention that because Trump does like talking about all this stuff. So funny that he didn't really mention those things.
well, he doesn't like talking about that. That's what I'm saying. If you think about what he's talking about, he talks about business things. He talks about that. But that's why I tell you, when people say, is he narcissistic? I said, no, he's egotistic. There's a difference. A narcissist would have to tell what he did for others like that.
Right.
He would have to
Hmm.
say, I bailed them out of their house. I taught the rapists this and that. He never, ever. He's gotten asked and said, all right, so what? I paid off the farm. And then we have video clips of that. But egotistical is, I have the number one business in the world. I'm the best at the job. This, that. So that's ego. And I'm okay because to be president, you need to have an ego,
Hmm.
especially of the free world. So,
Let
so
me ask you a question. You're interviewing all the family members. Any differences that any like they were any different than you expected them to be, or are
no,
they
I mean,
really
look,
down to earth, or how they if
all
you
of
can
them
rate
were
them?
as professional, and I'm not just saying that for the PR. They all were very professional, very. Don Jr., I'll give him props. Eric was great. He's very well spoken. They all are. But Don, I did all the questions with our director, Christopher Martini, who's an outstanding director. And Christopher is going to be directing Oscar winning stuff soon. So Don, I would throw curveball questions and he can hit him out of the park. I mean, he was ready. I mean, he was somebody I said could be running for office tomorrow if he wanted the job. He's really seasoned, to do so. Laura Trump, as professional as they come. Kimberly, you could tell, had the TV background just for her professionalism. And Eric is a spokesperson. He represents the family. Now, Kai was really special because you got a perspective of showing the human side of Donald Trump, because she would tell you stories of golfing with her granddad and conversations and things like that. So you got that, and then you mix that with well, I had Trump's oldest friend, somebody who I became very, very close to, Peter Tickton. Peter Tickton went to military school and was his roommate, in military school. And so you got somebody who knows him for 64, 65 years, who's basically expressing this is who this man always been. Peter tells a great story of Donald became captain immediately. Who, surprise, surprise, he became captain immediately in the military school. And it was his job to oversee when people would get packages, make sure, hey, everybody round up. You got mail, you got cookies, he would notice who didn't get anything. And by the next time, he would make sure that they would have something and they didn't have nothing. These are the kind of things that people don't know about this man, the man you don't know. So when I pitched that to the family and I told them, this is what I'm going to do, they were like, he's the guy. We're doing it with him.
Did you have to finance you got financing this for this
Yeah,
project?
yeah. I refinanced, but I guaranteed everything and paid it all back. So, so yeah.
And
So
in this movie, when this movie came out, this movie itself, did it come out in theaters as well, or did this came out
this
straight?
we have even worse problem. So
Mhm.
now we get almost 1,000 screens, and the movie's coming out October 25th. The election's November 5th. The whole plan, the deal was we wanted people to watch this so they can help get him elected. That was the whole plan. So New York had this many theaters, California had this many, all this. All of a sudden, Trump's doing his rally at Madison Square Garden, and there's 500,000 people at Madison Square outside wanting to get in, and this, and that. So we're pre-selling tickets the same weekend. That's when the movie's coming out. All of a sudden, we start getting flooding on our email. We're getting reimbursed our money, and New York saying there's no theaters carrying the movie. Like, what? All of New York, only Staten Island. They had one theater in Staten Island that carried it. And we were like, unbelievable. So I called President Trump's people, his senior advisors, and I said, they're shadow banning us heavy. What do you mean? I said, they're making sure we're not there. I said, so they go, okay, you know what? We have an idea. Let us call you back. I get a call back, and it's Evan Jones, who at the time was with X, with Ashley Sinclair, who was with X, and basically said, hey, Elon wants to know if you'd be willing to have him post this movie on X and release it for free and monetize it for how many views so you can make some money and do this, and that. It's going to be the first time we ever did anything like this. And Benny Johnson and Elon will post it together, and you'll get views. But we want to do it the Friday before the Tuesday of the election. I said, all right, you know what? I want to get this guy elected. Forget about if I make all the money. If I don't, it doesn't matter. So we posted, and by the election night, we had 50 million views on X.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. That's probably better than those movie theaters.
And
That's an
and
incredible
as of
story.
today, we have about 130 million views on
Okay,
X.
before they're gonna be have to cut out soon, so I gotta tell you some exciting things. That's about. Um, I thought a while ago when I started writing myself. I think Trump is an interesting character, and I know again the whole 9 yards about how this shadow banning. I'm just wondering why they don't do quote Trump the musical.
Huh,
And
interesting.
I think it's such a his whole life coming up like, oh, well, your life is pretty exciting to read your part. But I wrote basic on it. I'm just curious if that's something. Can you imagine the controversy if it did that in New York or LA to show it? But I also think it's cool to do it in this like, his whole life type of thing. I really want to do it as more of a story about almost Rocky,
Do
him
you
being
know
knocked
when
down
you
so
know
many
when you
times.
could do that? Listen, when he's officially out of office, people will be more open to see that. That's a fact. Right now,
You think right now it's and also I'm just saying, like you said, like I just saw a movie recently called The Senior. It's an Angel production.
yeah, I know.
Angel production also is a streaming service.
I know.
And I mean, I think that's one of those networks that do more like quote
But we
family
have
type
our own
films.
streaming platform because of that.
Oh,
Because it's called weidentify.com. and it's identified with an I at the end. That's where you can see the movie. It's playing there,
Right.
$4.99. But soon, I can't announce it. I'm not going to break it. I'll give you a little tidbit. There's a big streaming platform taking our Trump movie. We're in contracts and going back and forth right now as we speak. So it's going to be coming off of our streaming platform, going on to a major to be watched. And by the way, I'm re-editing the Man You Don't Know. I'll break this here. I haven't said this yet. I'm re-editing it, and I'm adding Charlie Kirk cuts to it. And
Wow.
and I'm going to have the ending now that he won the election, because before we didn't have that, because it was
Mhm.
released before. So we're going to be doing a new, what they call, producer cut release, and I believe we won't be shadow banned as hard, because I've talked to certain theaters.
I'm going to give you one idea. And if you make a lot of money, then, let me know. When you do the Charlie Kirk story, I think it needs to be told.
Yeah, I mean, his people are already working on that, and I didn't think it was proper time to reach out and
Right.
talk about that. But if there was any company to do it the best, it's us. If you haven't seen our movie, The Man You Don't Know, we've gotten very, very,
No, it's
very
great.
proud ratings. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. It was definitely it was definitely a great movie.
thank you.
All right, I'm up to my things I hate. I'm going to run out of time. So, since we're on things I hate. One of the things I hate is hypocrites. This whole thing about them being so upset about our friend, quote, Jimmy Kimmel being banned. And at the same time, they were banning everybody from YouTube and this and any other information.
What
For
do you mean?
one, they
They
just like
celebrated
don't
Trump
understand
being
the
banned
idea
off
is
all his social media platforms. They
right.
celebrate.
So how could you be this is bad? And I mean, to me, it's listen. I respect Ted Cruz when he was even though he didn't agree with the whole thing. I respect people being consistent. If you're against one thing, whether it's your side or the other side, but these people were so upset about one thing, like when it's their side, and don't care when it's the other side. And we see so much of that constantly. It really drives me crazy. I'll give you another quick example, something I hate. It's really these again Trump derangement syndrome to this point right now, there are people now who are pregnant that are taking Tylenol on purpose because Trump said it's bad for their child. I mean, it's so bizarre that you are hurting your own unborn child, pro-life, that you're hurting your unborn child because you want to prove Trump wrong. I mean, it's so bizarre, that hate.
That's free. That's free will, right? I mean, that's free will. That's what they. It's their right to do so. So I mean, you know, um, it's sad. I pray for them. I pray for everybody. I pray for them. I hope that they can see, the man really could cure cancer, and it wouldn't be good enough for them. Like, seriously, it really wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that it's I think what happens again, my personal thing is people more to the liberal left are more emotionally based, that how they feel, and the feelings are what's real to them. And if somebody says something that's quote hurtful, then they're taken out of the picture. Whatever else they do, they don't care because it's all about feeling good. So if they're like building up quote your community and making you, even if the community, even destroys your community in the long run, at least that makes them feel good. I mean, like even these programs, all these welfare programs, oh, they're giving me this, they're giving me this, and it destroys the actual community, the idea of family working together. But at least they're making them feel good, and so it's that philosophy. I think that's my thing. I think they're making the emotions, and that's why it's such a to me, that's why it's such an actor and theatrical because they're in touch with their quote feelings. And then people that are quote more about seeing the facts on the ground, like business people, whatever, they're more quote lean more Republican because they want to see results.
Yeah.
And we don't care how we get there almost until some
Exactly.
degree. But they want to see how they feel at the moment. That's the way I see that. Okay, here's a business idea I was going to come up with. Your entrepreneur. I don't know if anything came up. I can't believe this hasn't come up yet. We call it a smart mirror. And what it would be is like I'm looking at you now, but you look at the mirror and it would tell you could focus on certain parts of your face, whatever, or body, and it would tell you what's wrong. And you can have those results sent to dermatologist, whatever. If there's funny things going on in your body, so forth, it would see and determine what's wrong. Does that
Interesting.
exist?
No, I
Yeah,
don't.
it
I
is.
don't. I don't know anything like that. No, that's interesting.
So I'm just like, I don't understand that. Okay. Now, my investment ideas for everybody out there is a company called Tiva. Tiva is a Israeli pharmaceutical company, and I don't pronounce this word, and they're coming out with a medicine called Levarcan, and it's supposed to help people with, again, Trump administration, to help with autism. And so the company, I do puts and calls. I would recommend that. I also going to tell everyone out there that I think if you have a stock option in your company, I didn't think I didn't talk about this. but it's good to invest in a conservative film production company because, again, it's a huge population that's not being reached, and so many of the movies out there are doing so well in the conservative market. They're doing so well, and the media kind of almost ignore it anymore. I mean, it's like every Christmas time, there's Christmas movies do really great. Every time there's a movie that deals with family issues, does really well. The use of the sound, there was one, the one about the issue of illegal immigration, that did phenomenally well. It's amazing that they don't see that,
Yeah,
that they don't see that. And I think investing, I don't know if there's a way people can invest in, type of projects like yours. But what I wanted to ask you is like, how do we get about? How do people want to know more about what you're doing? What's the next
sure,
project?
sure. We have a website, www.globalascensionstudios.com. I think www.gastudios is up and running. I'm not sure. It should drive you to our page. And we have the man you don't know.com. I'm at on Twitter, I'm at Joshua Macciello. On X, I'm sorry, on X, I'm at Joshua Macciello. On Instagram, I'm at Josh Macciello. And we have company sites all over TikTok, everywhere. So, you can follow us everywhere, info at globalascensionstudios.com. If you have any ideas you want to pitch to us or any projects or whatnot, we're reading everything and looking at everything. And I really read everything. If it comes in, I read it because you never know when you're going to have the next big thing.
Now, you had something you wanted to tell us about with Charlie Kirk that you felt that the media is not covering. Did you want to share that with?
Well, it's not really about the media not covering. I mean, I just feel, I feel, it's there's I was blessed to be around him, and a month and a half ago was the last time at Trump Westchester. He was our keynote speaker for our perk. Perk is fighting for kids and vaccine mandates and stuff like that. And Charlie was a keynote speaker, and it's really a shame. You see how many people are trying to capitalize, after he died and utilize his death with fabrication, without true, without substance. Yes, there's a lot of unanswered questions. Even Cash Patel said, look, we're looking at the possibility of another shooter. He said that, because there's an investigation going on. These are the facts. All these people running with theories and trying to blame certain ethnic groups and things like that. It's very, very interesting to me. The deep state took a shot at the current president. At that time it was a former president. Well, Charlie Kirk could have been president. Is that why they killed him? No, I think they're more worried about the midterms. We still have to win the midterms. If we
Right.
don't win the midterms, these 2 years don't mean nothing. They mean nothing. Imagine all the celebration, this, that mean nothing. It could all go back to crap. So Charlie was starting the campus tour and going to help us win the midterm. So my heart's with Erica, the kids, all the Turning Point family. I have a relationship with them. I'm going to utilize that relationship with them to help them any way I can. I want to be a support, a big brother to them, and really, really help them get their message out any way I can.
So, in terms of the projects you have coming, do you have any? It appears that you do many more documentaries and full-length
I got
films. Is
feature
that accurate?
films. I can't break it because they're so big that I'm not allowed to talk yet because I got to wait for the studio. But I do have Peter Ticken and I are working on the Tina Peters case. If you're not familiar with Tina Peters, she's the woman who was doing time for having the Dominion servers proving that the election was stolen in 2020. So they threw her 10 years in jail in Colorado. So we're basically getting her freed from jail, and we're covering that whole story. We have proof that January 6th wasn't what it was. We actually have video and Capitol pleas. We have a lot of people ready to talk. So it's going to be an exciting, revealing, if you will.
So I'm doing, but back to him without revealing the information, because it's a secret. But the feature film that you're doing that's whatever the one that's not the one that you're doing that you said it's not a uh
Documentary.
documentary. Thank you. Well, that's all. I guess I'm old and senior age for a minute. Can you what's the basic concept, if you don't mind? Can you let us know about that? Anyway, just curiosity.
I'll leave you guys as my kid said, I'll give you some tea. It's very
Okay.
biblical.
Okay, there we go. That's very good. Okay, before I let everyone, also one other thing I want to mention too. Batman the podcast, The Long Halloween. I really love great podcasts. It's funny how as you go back, I'm going back in time, going for long drives in California, whatever it is. Batman, The Long Halloween is a great, really entertaining podcast. I don't know with kids, but it's really, really surprisingly good. I had a conclusion I wanted to talk about, but I have to tell you, you changed my whole thing, Joshua. I wasn't planning to say this, but so I'm just going to say this to everyone out there. Joshua taught us one major thing. Life is a roller coaster. And there are times when you're gonna be down. You're gonna be down. And Josh said, I mean, everyone's got a way, got to find the way to do it. I do it through faith, Josh does faith, but everyone has a different way. But you don't want to get off the roller coaster. When it's down, you've got to get yourself up because there's another hill to climb, and it's going to keep on happening in life. So stay on the ride, and God willing, we'll all make it to the top in our own way because God has a mission for all of us out there. Sometimes it's hard to find, and as we have a Yom Kippur coming, Jewish religion, and hopefully I pray that everybody out there, God willing, will have a new year that's sealed with happiness, health, success, and peace, most important. Thank you all for joining us for the Bud Rebel podcast, and God bless.
Amen.